Seth, can you give me a close up on your shirt real quick?
I wore it. I realized I wasn't
You had
even.
to, yeah. Get up here. Let's see that
Yeah.
shirt.
This is the only dad shirt I had. Dad
Dude,
bod. Speaking
dad
of,
bod. That's a great shirt.
someone gave it to me when we found out we were pregnant with Kellen. There was a work party and someone showed up to the work party with this shirt.
That's
I
good.
never
It's like a
wear it.
Run DMC style
Yeah.
dad bod shirt. All right, welcome back to Rad Dads, a dad podcast, where I, Micah Sherman, interview some of the coolest dads that I know who have a big love for their families and an even bigger love for Jesus. New episodes drop not once, but twice a month. So subscribe on YouTube at Rad Dads. That's RADDAD with a Z on the end on YouTube. And of course, anywhere you listen to podcasts. So, hey, it's time to introduce our Rad Dad of the day. So let's go to the scouting report. Currently, it looks like he is about to take off into a space shuttle. So we'll figure out where he's at. So our Rad Dad, he graduated from California Baptist University, CBU, Go Lancers, where he played volleyball as a freak ambidextrous athlete outside hitter for men's volleyball. He was a part of the 2010-2011 back-to-back national championship team for men's volleyball, including wins against UCI, UCLA, USC, Long Beach State. This is fun just to like ramp you up. And was actually the kill leader in 2012, 329 kills that year. He currently is a business analyst, but also worked as a legal analyst and research analyst. A lot of analyzing. Him and his family have lived in 3 different states in the last 6 years and are presently in the lovely state of Idaho. Meridian, correct? Meridian, Idaho.
Meridian, Idaho.
Meridian, Idaho. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's welcome to the show the one, the only Aaron McCalmont. Aaron, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks for being available. So anyways, Aaron, I got to reach out to some of your family to tell and ask them what they love most about you. So starting with your sister, Kim, she said, you are a complex guy, a charmer, silly, fun, easygoing, but also a little crazy and ornery sometimes. Your wife agreed with that. And my favorite thing about him is how fun he can be. Kim's husband, Ty, when asked what is his favorite thing about you, he said his sister. That's all he said. And then Weston, so their kids said their favorite thing about Uncle is that he plays music really loud and has dance parties. And Audrey said that he's silly too. And then also your kids said the favorite thing about you is that you are very silly. And last but not least, your wife said, what I love most about Aaron is how he is always his authentic, genuine self, invites you to be your most honest and genuine self too. And at times this means he is a walking dance party, yet you can also share your heart with him as he cherishes it. So, Aaron, tell us about who Aaron McCalmont is at home.
Wow. Sounds like I'm a silly guy.
He's a silly guy.
That was really, really cool to hear. And I've been a advent follower of your Rad Dads podcast from day one.
And you've always been a Rad Dad, but now it's official.
Yeah, it's exciting I remember you and I talking about this idea, this concept, months before you actually did your first interview. And here we are, second season into your podcast and doing it together. So yeah, that's exciting. Right. It was cool to hear the people you reached out to. And so my family, a little bit about me. My wife and I, Lauren, have been married for 8 years. We actually just celebrated 8 years, like about 2 weeks ago on October 9th.
Congratulations.
It has been, thank you. It's been amazing. It's been a dense 8 years, a lot we've gone through. but I got to say marriage has definitely been sweeter now on the parenting side of marriage. Just having that common mission and goal has been awesome. And um, yeah, I think just being able to share that and intentionally kind of help each other through that new stage has just been very cool. And then also with that, for Lauren and I, we made it a point early on in our marriage to make a pact, knowing whether we saw it or heard about it. When you have kids, it could just your marriage could go by the wayside, right? You just put it on the
Sure,
back
sure.
burner. And so that's been really cool to just be intentional and share that mission as well, to keep our marriage at the forefront. And so yeah, so Lauren and I have been married for 8 years. She is just, man, God bless me with her. She's a 12 out of 10. Inside beauty is just as great,
Amen.
beautiful as her outside. Yeah, batting above my average there with her, but and she just continues to just amaze me with just her growth. And just spiritually, it's been amazing to see her grow throughout. I think we've been together 10 years now, but 8 years married. So
Awesome.
besides that, I have two little ones. Kellen, he is about to be 4 in December, so he's 2 more months. Yep, he'll be 4. And he's Lauren to a T. He looks like her, brown
Right.
hair, brown eyes, just like looks wise. He just looks like a boy version of Lauren. And weirdly, like he acts like her, or like has a lot of personality traits
Really?
of her
Huh.
as well. More like very kind and sweet and gentle in a lot of sense, but uh, is very like, Lauren was never adventurous. Like when she was a kid, she didn't really like getting on a ATV, or like she was just kind of okay to have both feet on the ground.
Sure.
Kellen's the same way. He's is a little bit more
We're
timid,
cautious.
yeah, more cautious, and it's just funny to see some personality traits come through. Um, and then Kitra, our daughter, she's 2.5, and I don't know where this girl came from. She has blue eyes, blonde hair. Lauren has brown hair, brown eyes. I have reddish hair, green eyes. So she came out of left field with her looks. She, there's some similarities, of course, and
Yep.
there's some recessive genes down there that my mom has blue eyes and blonde hair. So
I
maybe
think
she,
we both have that in common. That our daughters look like our well, my daughter looks like my mother-in-law, and then yours looks like your mom. The blonde and the
yeah,
blue
yeah.
eyes. It's true.
And I feel like Kitra and Logan look more like siblings than Kitra and Kellen. It's pretty
Yep.
funny.
Right.
But yeah, so Kitra, she's, and how Kellen kind of got some of Lauren's personality traits. I think Kitra is definitely getting blooming into her personality, and I'm seeing a lot of what I had. She's a jokester, especially hearing what people said about me within my
Hmm.
family. Um, she's quite the little comedian. She loves to crack a joke, and whether anyone thinks it's funny or not, she's going to laugh about it.
She's
And
confident. That's
she's
dad.
yeah, yeah, she
That
might
is
be
dad
tearing
right
up some
there.
dance floors in the future. I don't know, but she's definitely, she's a leader. I could see that. Not to say that's a trait of mine per se, but I could see she's definitely has that confidence. And
Sure.
um, yeah, there's some stubbornness in her. I know Kim, my sister, said I was ornery, and yeah, there's definitely, well, the Lord is working in me for sure. But yeah, there's some
He
stubbornness
provided
in
the
her.
perfect wife for you. It's
He
something to be
did.
said when your
I
best
mean,
friend knows like that's the perfect person for him. That they elevate your gifts and
yeah,
what everybody loves about you, but they also know when to like put you in your place. And I think that both of our wives do that. So that's a good thing.
absolutely. Yeah, that is one of the biggest blessings of our wives, knowing when to tone down our
Yep.
our crazy. Yeah, so Kitra, yeah, she definitely has some stubbornness to her, but I think just knowing that and kind of helping her in that way, I'm
Yep.
excited to kind of work through that. But she's also such like a soft little girl, you know. It's so
Yep.
sweet to see that soft, gentle side of her as well. So that's the family,
Cool.
2 kiddos. Yeah, we're loving life. A little hectic. They're 14 months apart, but yeah, we're loving it.
That's
So
fun. They'll be thick as thieves as they grow up if they're not already. Probably not
yeah,
right now. I don't know. Are they?
no, that's definitely, no, yeah, their bond for each other is really cool.
Cool. So tell us about some of the highs and lows, just of where you're at parenting right now with those two and being close at a young age. What are kind of some of the highs and lows that come to your mind right now that you and Aaron are, you and Lauren are going through?
Yeah. So I know I said I didn't catch the thick as thieves thing, but I would definitely say that's a high right now. Just they're at that stage where they're both fully like blooming in their personality. They're chatty. They're in that toddler stage where it's not
Mm-hmm.
like brother who's 4 has a sister who's 1, and they just can't really communicate or build that as close of a bond. So that's been really cool to see, and that was our hope and prayer. Like as we had them so close together, it
Right.
was kind of a shock. We didn't know how close they were going to be, but here we are, 14 months apart,
Right.
and now we're seeing that hard work up front with having them 14 months apart. Seeing them now just have this bond for each other, this love for each other, it's really cool. And just today, like they were playing in the living room, building a fort together, and part of the fort was putting a pillow in between the couch and ottoman, and one of them fell through, and they would just giggle, and then they ended up like rolling
Uh,
on the floor, and like they're like, "Yeah, take a picture," like as they're like hugging
just
each
having a
other.
blast. Yeah.
Yeah, like little things like that, and they just started this preschool, and Kitcher only goes 1 day a week. She goes on Friday, and this past Friday, the teacher said, or a few teachers have said, like it's so sweet to see their love for each other, like on
Cool.
the playground, when they realize they're both out there, and like
Right.
they meet eyes, they just run to each other and just like check in on each other, and like little things
That's
like that.
cool.
Like I'm hoping that continues
Right.
to grow and well into their years. So
Right.
yeah, and so probably one other high. We hit some good milestones the past 6 months.
Oh,
They're
cool.
both potty trained fully now.
That's big.
Yeah, they're both in out of their crib, which I think it's been good.
Yeah.
You have to
It's always a
that
challenge at
right.
first.
Yeah, but so they're both in their big kid bed now, which has
And you're
been
saving some money at Costco now, not having to pay for all those diapers. I can't
right.
wait to
Yeah,
be there
that is
someday.
nice. Yeah, yeah. It's a milestone that should be celebrated. So that's another high right now.
Cool.
Some did you ask what lows were as well?
Yeah. Any lows, anything that's just been, you kind of feel like you're in the thick of it in any way?
Yeah, lows. I feel like lows kind of play off some of. Well, one of the low I could think of right now is when I was bringing up school. So Kellen, he's going to school now 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday,
Mm-hmm.
and the guy just doesn't isn't liking school that much, and we're having to work through some obedience issues where we get reports back from the teachers where they're like, yeah, he wasn't really listening, he's not really um, doing the project and things like that. So it's good to hear
Sure.
that because then like okay, we need to hone in on some of these
Right.
things through them. Um, but yeah, just this last week we got some good reports, so it seems like it's that low is slowly transitioning to a high, but
Nice.
Ellen just yeah, kind of getting him used to the flow of school and others outside the home, kind of providing some direction to him. I think it's been good,
Cool.
but it's something we're working through. And then the whole crib thing, I feel like we have taken the approach where we're very ritualistic, or we've tried to stay in routines with our kids.
Mm-hmm.
I know some parents have like, oh, yeah, that's not how we do it, and so we've been very routine. Like
Nice.
they sleep in their own bed, like like it's very yeah rigid in some sense of their habits we've helped create. So
Yep.
the downside of that, though, whenever we've traveled with them, it's just chaos. Like
Sure.
they can't sleep outside of their environment. And
Turns out
maybe
you
that's
can't bring your crib with you on the plane or in the car. Pack
it's
and play, but
yeah, pack and plays. They just jump out of it, and it's just yeah. And then naps just go out the window, and I'm sure that's probably a low with many, whether you have routines or not. But we've tried to avoid travel right now
yeah,
until now they're out of the cribs. Maybe that's something we're looking forward to testing out again.
yeah,
But yeah, so I'd say those are the things that come to mind, highs and lows
cool.
right now.
All right, so moving on. So you are officially the work from home dad. And there's a lot of dads nowadays, especially with our technology, that work from home. So just kind of getting your experience on that. I believe you and your wife work from home, right?
Yep, we both do.
So even better. A
Yeah.
lot of dads and parents that are working from home right now. So as a remote working dad, how has that been working from home each day with your kids? Around at the same time. I know that they go to daycare sometimes, but how has that been? Let's start with that.
Yeah. So working from home obviously has a lot of great things. Like but with anything, there's pros and cons, I'd say. Um, but so I'd say how it's been with kids. Each stage has looked a little different. Like I started working remote pretty much around the time COVID hit, and everyone went remote pretty much, and then just never went back to the office after that. So when COVID hit, Kellen was 3 months old, or when things
Uh-huh.
got locked down or whatever. Kellen was 3 months old, so it was awesome. Like I was no longer commuting into like an hour there and back. Like having that time with like my newborn. It was so cool. And but as the stages have progressed, now we have two, and now they're both like active, and
Yeah.
so it's a little different. I can't just put Kellen in a little pack and play or a little
Right.
rocker when he's 3 months old and get my work done right. So setting up boundaries has been a little challenging in this sense. And actually, I'm finally getting to what you're
Right. The
saying.
space shuttle.
This
Yeah.
is my office. Actually,
Where are you right now?
I am in the garage. So
The garage. Yep.
our garage is a 2-car garage, and like at the back left of the garage, there's this little workshop, and then our utilities are back here.
And the
And
kids you couldn't just put the kids back here.
oh yeah, no, they try actually.
That
So
was
yeah, the
probably a better
garage.
dad decision. So good job.
they so my office is in the garage. I've converted this garage workshop into my office and a little standing desk, and um, but all that to say, I feel like working with them at home, it definitely has some challenges, but having going back to your point, like these are the golden years. Like we're probably gonna look back on, and I know there's gonna be 30 more years or however many more years I'm employed or working like
Sure.
that. I'm gonna have a quiet home. So I haven't done the best job per se at saying this is Dad's office. Like stay out of the garage. Like putting those hard boundaries in place.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I look around, like Kellen's trucks are all around. Like
It's real life,
he'll
man.
come in here throughout the day and play with his trucks, and they know that like if Dad's on a call, I'd say any remote dad listening, and you probably already have this, but
Right.
definitely one of these, especially with one of the flips where like I could
Yeah.
say, Kellen, I'm on a call, like mute it or something.
Sure.
The kids
So
know,
they
like,
know that.
right, yeah, they know. Or like another thing is like I'll tell Lauren like, hey, I have a big call coming up. Do you mind like making sure the
Sure.
kids don't run out to the garage? But for the most part, it's just kind of white noise with them
Yep.
playing about like bring me like pretend food as I'm like
Yeah.
drafting an email, or
Hmm.
I want them to know like I value them, and like I don't
Right.
want to put much over them, right? And they're seeing me. I think a struggle with working from home is your kids are constantly seeing you look at the computer or be
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
so. And I feel like I knew you were gonna put the title of this was gonna be remote dad, and so one of the things that came to mind as I was thinking through like what questions will he ask me. One thing that came to mind was something Josh Buckley said a long time ago, and I know Josh Buckley is another rad dad you've interviewed. I don't
Yep.
know when.
Yep. Yep.
It was a
All the
while
way
back,
from New
but
Zealand.
yeah, he said something that stuck with me, and it was like at least uh, I don't know 8 years ago. I don't.
Huh. And I
So
think that
that's
he said, if I remember right, Josh came in and said, "Hey, Dad, it's 5 o'clock," because he had told him at 5 o'clock, Dad's done. And so he came to, because he had obviously talked to Josh about that. And so Josh, like,
oh
he
my
clearly
gosh.
communicated that. Josh held him accountable. And in that moment, his dad could say, "Oh, just a couple more minutes. I need to finish this up." Or what he ended up doing was saying, "Hey, you know what? I'm done. I made a commitment to my family that I'm done at 5 every day. And
Mm.
like you said, he remembers that to this day. So I feel like it's that balance of, yeah, you got to get this work done, but you've also given this certain amount of time to your family that, hey, from here on out, dad's off work and I'm 100% dad.
Yeah.
Which just was
Yeah.
a great story, great reminder for us.
I'm glad you clarified some details there, because that's even better now to like think about. Okay, and I may actually talk about that boundary Lauren and I have set. But yeah, it's so going back to like I want them to know like like dad cares about you. Like my
Yep.
job is one thing, right? And is obviously it's important, but I never want them to think I'm putting my work above them. And yeah, so
Cool.
those are some
And then
things
you
that,
said like communicating with Lauren, right? Because I mean, she's working too. So how's that looked like getting both of your
yeah,
time?
that is probably the biggest, one of the biggest things I've kind of failed forward in, like communicating. Obviously, communication in marriage is it's always something you need to work through and work on and grow in. And but especially as like with working from home, like being out here, it's not like out of mind, out of sight. I'm out of office, so if I'm not communicating to her like, hey, I have a big meeting or I have a big week, like then she's like blindsided when she's
Sure.
thinking I might be stepping in like I usually do to the house, like, hey, checking in. Or
Right.
so that's been a big thing I think for us, as we've learned and worked through, is like just communicate whenever those big days or big weeks are coming up. We tend to open up our calendars together, like our work calendars, and
That's a great
at least,
practice.
yeah, that's been very helpful. And maybe it's before we go to bed. Oh, hey, actually, I think I have a bunch of calls or a big call tomorrow. Open it up and we talk through that and kind of plan through it. And so that's been a helpful tip or helpful uh, approach we've taken that's helped
Cool.
kind of manage the work from home life, and having two kids.
Expectations.
Expectations, yep, yep. And Lauren's just been amazing. She's like, she comes in and checks on me, like if I'm working too late at one point, or like around the time I usually get off, like, hey, it's getting close. Are you almost done? I'm like, yes, thanks for checking. Like, so going back to that Josh story, I feel like that is like I need to commit to a certain time. I kind of like
Mm,
have this gray, like, or this window, like between on a good day 3:30, on a bad day 5. So I should just commit to like no later than this, unless it's an exception that
sure.
I've clearly communicated. And um, yeah, so I yeah, it's been working through some of those struggles of having having your work at home and creating some of those boundaries. And what recently we've implemented. I took a new role at my work, and it's been a little bit more demanding. So the learning curve, I'm still trying to prioritize family.
Right.
I still try and commit to, okay, don't work past 5. I try
Cool.
and shoot for like 4:30, and at that point, if I still have work to do that I know I need to get done, I'll just
Right.
clock out at the point, or just shut the computer down, and then go in the home or go in my house, spend time with the family.
Sure.
And then once the kids are down, once everyone's asleep, I'm a night owl, so I'll just sign back in and get that
There you
done.
go.
So I make a block of time, like I'm not going to work, but I'll work
Sure.
later if I have to.
Right.
So that's, I mean, it's not the greatest. Like your work is at home, like you bring work home because
Right.
it's at home. But
But you're making
uh,
time for your family, and
yeah,
and
and that's
then
the
doing
priority.
what you have to do as a dad, as a remote working dad, where you're giving your time to your family, and then you have that time where, hey, I still got to get work done.
Yep, yep.
Cool. Great job. You're doing great.
Whew,
One day,
it's a
one week
work.
at a time. Yeah, I
Yes.
think about that for myself too. There's a time that I have told Cosmo I try to leave at. Sometimes I'm better at it, sometimes I'm not, but I try to stick to, and then when I'm home, be home. And this last week has been the same example. Like I've had to, once the kids are down, I have to get
Mhm.
that extra work in. So just making those boundaries, communicating clearly with your spouse, hey, this is a more full week, busy week, or
Mhm.
hey, can I have some help here, whatnot, I think is key for marriage. Just communication.
Right, right.
Clear
whether there's kids
communication.
involved or not. That's just, yeah.
All right, a little more lighthearted question. What would you say has been one of the funniest things your kids have said or done recently, or possibly just even any dad fails that you just want to freely admit on the Rad Dads show that has happened recently?
Okay. First one was funny. Something funny that's happened, you said?
Yeah, if anything comes to mind. Yeah.
I'd say that, I mean, I feel like every day they say something funny right now. But one that comes to mind, I feel like a bigger one was recently, it was with Kellen. I think Kitra might have still been napping or something. I walk into the house, Kellen's like has a plate of food, and the plate just had like maybe like a PBJ on it, or so, I don't know, just like some type of savory meal substance. And then on the counter, there's like cut up
I love that a PB&J is a savory meal.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So it wasn't a snack like dessert.
Yeah.
So he was eating some lunch or dinner. I don't know. And there's strawberries on the kitchen counter, and I walk in and I'm like, "Oh, bud, do you want your strawberries? Like, want me to put your strawberries on?" Or I put them on this plate, like, "Oh, here's your strawberries," thinking Lauren forgot about him or something. And then he was like, "Oh, mom's gonna say, oh, of course you gave him the strawberries." I was like, "What?" I'm like, the fact that he just said that in a tone like Lauren has said before.
He's heard it before.
Of course she did, like he repeated it in like what he has heard Lauren say before, like, Dad,
the sponges.
Yeah. So the fact I was like, "Oh, was I not supposed to give you these?" Did Mom say no?
Right. Yep.
And then Lauren comes down like, "You put the strawberries on this?" I'm like, "Sorry." Like, but he did say something really funny.
Looking at you. I told you.
Dad, I told you. Yeah, that was a funny one recently. And then the second question was a dad
Any
fail?
dad fails.
Yeah.
Well, you might be perfect, Aaron. I'm not going to put it past you, so you might not have any.
So I'm thinking of Kellen again. So I recently started cutting. Well, I've been cutting his hair, let's say, for the past year.
Okay.
The guy's just I don't know if you've ever tried cutting your
not yet.
Kid's hair.
I do plan on it though.
Okay. Kellen's a moving target, and it's just like so hard. And then he's very particular. So if a hair falls on his like shoulder, and like starts like getting it, like what the fuck. So his haircuts definitely are butcher cuts. He looks like Joe Dirt sometimes, and I feel like that is a dad fail for me. I'm like, I mean, should I just pay the $25 where he sits in like a cool car chair? It's a professional looking thing.
But you're saving some money.
Saving money. I enjoy it.
I
remember cutting some guy's hair back in college. And I think it was Woody. Like, I would cut Woody's hair. His was easy. You just shave the sides and not the top. But so Kellen, that's probably my dad's fail. Just bad haircuts for him. And then, I think.
You gotta have some good bad haircuts, or mom. My mom would cut my hair, and I remember my coach saying, "Who butchered your hair?" And I was like, "Mom is not cutting my hair again." Except that was when I was in high school, so that changed.
Oh, high school.
Maybe junior high.
Yeah, I'm like, he's little. People aren't looking too close. They're like, they'll give me some great.
I love Leslie Sherman, but
I love
it wasn't her best skill.
Good stuff.
All right, cool. Moving on. So another unique thing about the McCalmonts is that you guys have lived in 3 states, I think, in the last 6 years. Does that sound about right?
Yep.
What would you say are 3 to 4 kind of do's or don'ts you would give to parents or dads that are moving to a different state, or just moving in general?
Yeah, again, kind of stages. When we left San Diego, we moved from San Diego to Arizona, 2019. Just I think Lauren was pregnant, so that was one stage of moving, right? But I had some friends that helped. And then moving from Arizona to Idaho. So those are the 3 states: California, Arizona, Idaho. Arizona, Idaho, we had 2 under three and under. I don't know. It was
Right.
hectic. The kids were definitely running around, and
Yeah.
a lot more. We had acquired, having two kids now, so our storage of our packing got a lot crazier. So do's and don'ts. I would say do from one actually that comes to mind. I definitely do is get a cleaner.
Okay.
Because for us at least, we've done the self cleaning at the end when you get everything out, you
Right.
clean the house yourself. But then we've done the just pay for it and let someone else do it.
And it was
That
worth it.
literally was so worth the money for us. It just
Okay.
it's just so, especially, I mean, for now as a parent, it's like it was just, we were so tired at the end of
Right.
packing the house and
having little
everything in
ones.
order. Yeah. So it was just nice to, like, we'll this was worth it for us to just pay someone to clean. And someone actually gifted that to us at one point. One of the moves, like, I'll just pay for this to have it done. And that was a huge blessing. And yeah, so I would say save your energy for like the unpacking eventually from your U-Haul or whatever. Like, just let get out of the house, let someone clean it, let someone else clean it, pay for it. Yeah, that would be a deal. Another one that comes to mind, that maybe this is personal experience, is when we bought some of our homes, like, I felt like I was very short term, like, focused, or like, oh, I want to move here because it's closer to the office. And now, like,
right,
no longer. So it's like I was thinking very short term and not thinking long term enough. And I would definitely recommend to anyone who's moving, like, and maybe you just
or considering moving.
Yeah, or considering moving, like, spend some time thinking if you have like certain areas you're looking at, like, think short term and long term, and maybe you're already doing that. But I know I wish I would have known that in some of those moves. Like, don't just think about, or you don't get wooed by, like, oh my gosh, but this area is right next to this really cool coffee shop, or whatever you're at the moment, because you got to think long term as well, and not just think long term for a second, but like really think about the long term of how that would be a good fit for you and your family. But
I've heard too, like, my brother moved to Tennessee, and he a big thing he was looking at was just schools. So, like, where they will go for, high school, junior high, and how are the school districts, how are they ranked? Because that's going to impact, like, neighborhoods too, and nicer neighborhoods, or maybe just safer neighborhoods that you want to live in. So kind of looking up those ratings of school districts and can help kind of narrow down maybe where you want to be long term.
Yep. That was one we definitely looked into. Like, school districts was definitely a high priority for us. But even, thinking school districts, other things, and
cool.
And then grandparents is the last thing that comes to mind. Like, if you have grandparents, I mean, my parents were huge help in our most recent move. I don't know how we could have done it without them.
Right.
They ended up taking the kids and driving them in our minivan all the way from Arizona to Idaho, and let Lauren and I take the U-Haul, like, just the last few days to just get things done and take the U-Haul up. But friends and family, that's a pretty obvious one.
That's invaluable for sure, especially when they're people that you know and you love and have similar values as you, like, that you want influencing your kids growing up. Is so you can't beat that.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Moving on. I know your faith in Jesus has played a large role in your life. What would you say God is teaching you now through marriage, kids, and family?
Ooh, good question. Yes, I feel like faith, man, that is the biggest factor of my life. It's changed everything about my life, and has given me the direction and the blessings I have. I'd say right now, I feel like what God has been teaching me, I've been trying to memorize a verse. We're so going back to church. We're going through Genesis right now, and one of the sermons recently was on marriage, like the beginning of marriage, Adam and Eve. Like, they tied that in. And since that sermon, I've been trying to memorize a verse about, like, we're called to love our wives like Christ loved us, right? And how's Christ, like, he was so selfless, right? And I think it's Philippians, I should know this, Philippians 2:3-4. Do nothing out of
Right.
selfish ambition,
Being conceit, yeah.
but think of others above yourself, or and then put others' needs, or don't look just to your own needs, but put other needs, or look to others' needs as well. Totally butchered it, but that's the concept of
Right.
Don't just consider yourself, like, be self. Look, how can you put your wife's needs above yourself, and how even like your kid, like, am I so selfish that I'm so focused on, like, my needs, my wants, or am I loving Lauren like Christ called me to love her, and serving my kids, or being a dad that's taking interest in them, and wanting to show selfless love to them as well. So that's been a big thing. I feel like God's been working on me, is just more of that selfless love and scripture memory. I feel like it was a big aspect of my life back at CBU, and then now I think you've actually encouraged me recently. Got the Bible scripture memory pocket verse thing back, and then I feel like just with kids, it's the thing that the Lord has kind of pressed in me from an early on stage with parenting, is never hold them so tight. Like, they're God's children. Like, God gave us them as, like, stewards. I've always, like, tried to look at, and, like, I think it's a verse in Psalms or Proverbs where, like, it talks about you grow them up, like, your kids are to be shot out like arrows. Like, I want that mindset of raising Kellen and Kitcher up in the way they should go, to know the Lord, and then shoot them out into the world to be lights and salt and light.
Right.
And just be good stewards of them. Not, oh my gosh, they're like I never, like, I get that, and I think the motherly instinct is, like, I want them to stay in my nest. Dads, I feel like, at least my dad was like, no, good luck, like, you're 18, whatever the case was.
Good old Albert.
Yeah. But yeah, and I not to say I want my kids to be close, but also if the Lord calls them to the mission field, or to be in another city outside of where we're at, like, I got to be okay with that. And I want to prepare them for whatever their journey, wherever their journey leads. So
thank goodness that's not yet. You still have some great years that you are preparing them and raising them up and enjoying this season, which is the pro of this season, is you get to have them and steward them and love them for a good number of years still before that happens.
Absolutely. And then I feel like right now we got plugged into our church pretty right off the bat when we moved up here, and then got plugged into a small group. And I mean, of course, corporate church is great. You should commit to going to on Sundays every week if you can, right? But I think even more, like, when you get plugged into a small group or life group or whatever the church may call it, that's what I feel like where I've seen the most growth, like, personally, and where, like, we're called to, like, love one another. You really get to do those one another's with each other and be around like-minded people. And just recently someone shared in our life group about, like, there's a bunch of parents in our life group, and there's some retirees, and it's a good diverse group. But I think it was someone who was I think he's 60, and he shared something about, like, being imitators, or, like, your kids should be imitating you, and how are you worthy to be imitated? Like, and that was, like, kind of a challenge of, like, are Lauren and I walking in a manner worthy of Christ, and would we feel proud of our kids imitating how we're kind of portraying our life, or things we're living our lives out as? And so that's definitely another one. I'd say just that whole imitation, like, we want our kids to imitate us, right? Hopefully, if we're pursuing the Lord and growing, but yeah. So
I think we've definitely talked about habits and how kids watch our habits and imitate our habits. and the
Mm-hmm.
things they see that we can do. So like I drink coffee every morning. Paxton, my son, knows I drink coffee, and like, so anytime we
Mm.
see a coffee place, he says that dada coffee. It's just a good thing to reflect on, like, what things are they associating to you, and how am I pointing them to Jesus in my habits, because they
Yeah.
will imitate me, and
Mhm.
therefore hopefully imitating the Lord as I try to become more like Him. So
Right.
it's a good thing to can be convicting, but also a good thing just to kind of talk with your spouse about, like, how are we doing this, and
Right.
yeah, growing in that.
Right. Yeah. It's yeah, totally convicting. And like if we're not being like the fruits of the spirit come to mind, like if we're not
Right.
being joyous or how they know how to love, if we're not being
Yeah. Right.
loving or patient or kind or gentle, self control, like all those things, like we should be reflecting that and growing in those ways to hopefully our kids seeing that and imitating them or learning them. And yeah.
Great. Cool. So you said being a part of a local church, and
Mm-hmm.
thinking about your habits, imitating, um,
Mm-hmm.
or what was one of the other ones?
The arrow, like being good
Right.
stewards, like
Being
time
good
you have with your
stewards,
kids, like being good steward of them. And then the first one
and
was,
scripture.
oh, that verse of, yeah, Philippians 2, 3, and 4, I believe, about being selfless for your spouse, for your kid. Like, yeah,
Cool.
putting
Yeah.
others'
Putting their
needs before your
needs.
own. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Close us out, Aaron. If you could give kind of just 3 tips or advice to any dads or parents listening to this episode, what would you say that you feel like could be kind of 3 kind of anchor points that, like, man, if I didn't get anything out of this episode, hopefully they do. Uh, I
It
got
could be
those
the
things,
case.
or even one thing.
Huh. 3 takeaways. Thinking back on some highlights of what we talked about or some questions. Um, I think a big thing right now, going back to like what the Lord's been doing in my life, big thing is just that whole more is caught than taught. Um, like you using that example of like um, Paxton saying you drink coffee, he's like, Dad drinks coffee. Like I've read some things recently, like kids, like more like, and maybe it was another rad dad. I ended up doing or buying the what's his name, Dad Academy. And I
Yep.
think in the
Yep.
first chapter, it's maybe that's where I saw the quote where like more is caught than taught.
Hmm.
Um, not to say you still should strive for um, teaching, right? But it's just that reminder, like our kids are constantly watching us. And I read another quote or read something else, probably on social media. It was like the things your kids are learning from you without you probably even really knowing is like your relationship with technology, how you handle
Hmm.
frustration, how you deal with like conflict, or
Right.
how you ask for these like these concepts or these real life situations. Like your kids are like watching how you are going to
Yep.
handle these things, and it was just a good reminder. Like they're constantly watching, and if that saying's true, more is caught than taught. Like I need to be more mindful and, and aware of what I'm doing subconsciously and what they're observing and
Right.
what I'm teaching them through my actions.
What
So
you're prioritizing, really.
right. That's and that
Where do
going
you
back to like
spend your time most?
yeah. And someone my small group recently said like do you prioritize church or do you prioritize like saying like, oh, we'll just skip church this weekend.
Right.
The Chargers are playing. Like I really want to, like then your kids see like, oh, church is optional, and like
Sure.
like
Right.
that's yeah. I just there's some things like your kids are watching what you prioritize, how you respond to things that. So more is caught than taught. Definitely say is one of the takeaways. If you didn't get anything else out of this episode,
Yep.
which maybe not, maybe it was just a session for you
That's
and I just
good.
catch up uh, and then kind of along those same lines, I feel like just the one thing that the Lord has taught me that I had a misconception of with parenting is the whole idea of discipline. And I always
Hmm.
thought of discipline as like, punishment, like penalties or I don't know if that's from a sports background or maybe how I was raised. I don't know. But I went through like a parenting course that another church was giving, like on like a Tuesday night or something. There was like some parenting course, and we went through this like book video series, and one of the lessons was on, like, I think the title of it was like, uh, discipline is not spelled punishment or something like that, and that misconception we have, and like how we should look forward to discipline, because discipline in and of itself is like teaching your children,
Right.
and like how cool is that we have this the next 18 years, and probably really only the next, really, the I think I've heard like the first 12 years is where the most impact is, and then so like how are we disciplining our kids in like the way they should go, and how they're bent, and like how we're helping them and teaching them, like when Kellen pushes us, like not just like go to your, it's like that's
Right.
a teachable moment. I want to discipline well in that, and like
Taking
having that whole
advantage of
mindset.
those moments.
Yeah, like why was that wrong to push it, or why was that wrong to say it, something like that, like like they don't know, like I just watched Kellen take a drink out of or I had to teach him how to drink out of a water fountain today. I'm like, you just don't realize you have to teach like how much
Right.
you have to learn, and more importantly, like the life lessons, and the values, and yeah, just really trying to be intentional, or looking at discipline from that lens. It's like you should look forward to that, and
Sure.
how you can teach your kids, in those moments, right? And then, and I guess with like trying to think about one more, so tying to the title of the episode, remote dad, I just encourage like all those out there who are working remote, which is probably a lot of us now, this post COVID era. Like we don't have a commute, right? People who work from
Right.
home don't have that commute, and I love that you seem to use your commutes intentionally. Like I love when I get a phone call from you on the way home from work, and there's some things that I miss about that, right? There's benefits of like just kind of decompressing from the day, the stress of
Sure.
that,
Sure.
um, and now that just looks different. Like I've talked with Lauren about this. Like, do you mind if I, like, right when I clock out some days, like to just go on a run to like have that like I don't run more than a mile usually, but just one to like get that physical exercise, because I think that's going to benefit your family just to be more active and have good health, and um, or just what's that extra time you have now that you work from home, how are you using that intentionally?
Sure.
um, so I think that's just
Across the board, like your health,
Mhm.
mentally, physically,
Yeah, the
and your
whole
family, for your family.
100%. I think physical health is more important than we realize. Like it impacts our marriage, it impacts how we parent. Like when we're exhausted or not in good health, like I feel like it's easier to fall into temptation of just sitting on the couch, or but when you're physically active, you have more energy. You have, and like you should have the goal in mind to get more active, to like have more time for your parents, and or your parent to have more time as a parent to like invest in
Right.
your kids, or be there for your wife. Like, so can I serve Lauren better? Because I have more energy. Like, so I
Totally.
think
Yeah.
that's
Plays
definitely,
into it.
yeah. So be
Cool.
intentional with your extra time you have with your virtual commute. So
Awesome.
yeah,
Aaron, would you mind? Well, before I have you close us out in prayer, I just wanted to say thank you for being down to be our remote dad episode. You are doing great. You are a great brother to many, many people, and you have sharpened me in my faith and encouraged me in my daily walk and in my marriage. And I think your kids are great, and that speaks to your parenting and you and your wife. So just really proud of you. Keep it up. You're doing great. You're in the thick of it. Just like you said, enjoy the moment, enjoy this season as in the thick of it of, toddler preschool age is challenged, but there's also so many sweet moments. So would you mind praying for any dad listeners out there who are listening tonight?
yeah, absolutely. But before I jump into prayer, I just want to also just say, well done. I just love that you took this idea and ran with it, and I can't imagine all the guys you've already blessed, all the dads out there you've already blessed, and their marriages and their kids, the trickle down effect, and it's just it's amazing. It's definitely been beneficial for me. I think I've listened to every single episode, and just
Dang.
whether I
Thanks, man.
remember every single word from every single, it's our memories aren't that great, I wish, but the fact that it's just you're putting this out there and giving us another avenue to just keep your mind on things above. I feel like that
Sure.
in itself, like spending 45 minutes to listen to like this podcast is so fruitful, and just in that keeping priorities in the right way. It's a lot better than sitting on the couch and watching
Sure.
a game
Sure.
for
Yeah.
45 minutes. Not to say that there's a time and place for that, but I appreciate
Right.
you creating this podcast and blessing many dads out there. So keep it up. We love you, and thanks. So
Thanks for
I'll
saying that,
close
man.
us.
All right.
Yep. Heavenly Father, we're just humbled to be approaching you, God, to know you, to call you our Father, to be known by you through your Son, and the workings that He has done on the cross to make a way for us to know you. God, we are just so grateful for the privilege it is to be a father, to be able to know you and what the perfect father was or is in your character, and how you have given us your word to learn and to strive to be more like you, and ultimately bless our families with, as we just continue to strive to know you more, and reflect your characteristics, and strive just to look like more like you each and every day. God, as you have placed so many dads in different scenarios and work environments, or the fathers who are finding themselves in a remote setting, I just pray over them that you'd help them to just be intentional with their time, that you'd give them the wisdom and discernment they need to create boundaries, and to continue to communicate with their spouses, and continue to prioritize what needs to be prioritized, Lord. That is their kids, is their marriage, that is you. So, Father, we just pray for, again, for all that you're doing in our lives, and just thank you so much for Rad Dads and for Micah and what he's doing, and just helping us all just glorify you in all we do. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.